Hi everyone, it's Andre here, Licensed Immigration Advisor. In this video, I want to talk about what I think it'll take to work in New Zealand in 2022. So the government has announced that they want to try and bring in fully vaccinated people from low-risk countries in early 2022. Now the other thing is there's also currently a massive skill shortage and labour shortage in New Zealand at the moment, and unemployment is currently at 4%. That's 4% unemployment. That's very, very low. 96% of people have jobs, so pretty much anyone who wants a job has a job. So there are so many businesses and employers are having a massive shortage of staff at this time. So this video I've divided up into 6 sections. There are timestamps at the bottom and you can jump through the sections if you don't want to watch the whole thing, or if you want to jump to a specific area. Now to get started, I'll talk about section 1 is making a CV. So for a CV, obviously you want it to be professional and you want it to be tailored for the New Zealand job market. So the job market in New Zealand, it's different from the job market in say India or the USA or even Australia. So you want to make sure your CV is tailored directly to the New Zealand job market. And for most people, I recommend just a basic CV, about 2 to 4 pages, 2 to 5 pages, 2 to 4 pages in length. Your basic information about your work history, your qualifications. I would cut any extra information which isn't really relevant. So if you're mentioning stuff like your blood type or your parents' names, or even hobbies that aren't really relevant, if you're talking about how you like fishing or you like reading books or something like that. I'd only include hobbies on your CV if they're particularly interesting or if they directly relate to a job position. But if they're not really relevant, I would just cut them from your CV. And the other thing is that it's really up to you if you want to get your CV, if you want to write it to yourself or if you want to get it professionally made. I don't think it really makes any difference. But if you do want to get it professionally made, I guess it might increase your chances slightly to get a job. I mean, maybe it'll increase your chances like 2% or 5% or something like that. And if it costs like $50 to get a professionally written CV, then maybe just do it, because it might, at the end of the day, it's still a 2% or 5% increases your chances, and you'll be sending that CV out to hundreds of companies. So I guess you want to make it look good, but I don't think it matters too much either way. It's really up to you. The other thing I'll talk about is using LinkedIn to try and find a job. So a lot of people can find jobs on LinkedIn. You can make your profile and you can connect with companies, employers and managers in New Zealand. The main mistake I see people making with LinkedIn is they make this super professional profile that makes them look super good and just goes on about their achievements. But in New Zealand, employers want people who are modest and humble. So if you've got a LinkedIn profile where you're wearing like a full-on suit and you've just gone on about how great you are at everything, you should just delete that. You should just delete that profile because it's not really suitable. What you really want to do is a LinkedIn profile which is more humble and more modest. If you're wearing a suit, get rid of that, change it to just with something like I'm wearing now, or maybe slightly better than I'm wearing now. Like wear a shirt, maybe a shirt and tie. But just try and make it a bit more modest and a bit more humble, because that's what employers are looking for. Once you've got your LinkedIn profile sorted, just start connecting with companies in New Zealand, with employers, with hiring managers. You can just send them a simple message like, hello, their name. I'm trying to expand my network and look for job opportunities in New Zealand. My goal is to immigrate to New Zealand. I want to try and secure a position before I immigrate. Do you mind if we connect? Just like some simple little message which explains who you are and why you want to connect with them. The third thing would be emailing professionally. So if you don't know how to email properly, you need to go and learn. You should be able to write a basic email which addresses the person by their name, which introduces themselves, which we introduce yourself, and then you sign off at the bottom. I would say don't copy and paste emails. Don't copy and paste an email and send it out to like 100 companies, because generally companies and employers can tell straight away that you've copied and pasted their email. So I would try and tailor each email to the person that you're communicating with. I would not recommend copying and pasting any emails, because generally people can tell straight away that you've copied and pasted this email and you've just sent it out to all these people, and they'll probably just hit the delete button if they think you've copied and pasted. The other thing when emailing is be careful with attachments. For example, if you're attaching your CV or your documents, don't send massive 10 megabyte or 20 megabyte attachments, because most servers can't handle them. So either the person won't be able to download the files, or the server will automatically delete your email because it's too big. So send like small attachments from like 1 to 5 megabytes. Don't send massive files, because they might just get deleted. The other thing is be careful when sending links. If you send a link to your CV and files, let's say you use Google Drive, you send a link in the email, the person clicks the link, and then they need permission to access your files, because they won't automatically have permission. So sending links is always a massive hassle as well. So I recommend don't send links, don't send big files, just send small files, like 1 to 2 megabytes if possible. If your files are too big, you can go on Google, you type in shrink PDF or make PDF smaller. There's 100 free online programs that can make your PDF smaller for free. So take your files, your CV, your documents, make them smaller, send them as attachments, don't send big files, don't send big links. One other thing would be, if you're sending files, make sure they're named, so with an actual name that explains what they are, like CV or diploma or whatever. Make sure the files are named, and make sure you don't have any files that have the same name. So I'm not an IT specialist, but if you send an email with 2 attachments and each file has the exact same name, it makes it difficult it confuses the computer or the server or whatever, and it makes it difficult to open those files because they both have the same name. So if you're sending attachments, make sure each file has a different name. That just prevents any problems with emailing. Number 4 would be understanding TradeMe and Seek. So the biggest job sites in New Zealand, TradeMe, TradeMe.com, Seek.com, or TradeMe.co.nz, Seek.co.nz. If you go on there, you'll see thousands and thousands of jobs. However, generally these ads are aimed at people already in New Zealand. They're not really aimed at people from offshore. The other thing is that with these ads, a lot of the positions are already filled. So what happens in New Zealand is, if you want to hire a migrant, you might need to advertise for New Zealanders first. So some of these jobs advertised on Seek and TradeMe, they already have a migrant working in that job in New Zealand, but they just have to advertise to keep the immigration department happy. So you find that a lot of those jobs, those advertisements are actually already filled, and you can't even really apply to them anyway. So I don't really recommend using Seek or TradeMe to look for jobs. I recommend hiring a licensed immigration advisor to help you if you're trying to get a job from offshore. Now people will say that I'm just saying this because I'm an immigration advisor or because I want to make money. That's true, but I also am saying it because it's the truth, because the reason is that every company in New Zealand is very scared or nervous to hire someone from offshore, because they don't know if that person can get a visa, and if they don't know if that person can actually get to New Zealand to start working. Now before COVID-19, most companies in New Zealand were very worried, very scared about hiring staff, about hiring migrants from offshore, hiring people who are not physically in New Zealand. Now with COVID-19, they're even more worried, because COVID-19 makes it even more difficult and even more scary. So if you're trying to deal with a company in New Zealand, you need somebody who can talk to the company and convince them, and who understands the immigration policy and immigration law, and who can actually explain to the company that it's okay if they hire you, and who can do all the paperwork and handle the whole process for the company. Because the companies don't understand immigration policy, they don't understand the process to hire a migrant worker, and they'll be very nervous to hire someone from offshore, especially with the COVID-19 situation. So Honestly, I think if you are trying to get a job from offshore, I'd say 95% of people need to hire a licensed immigration advisor to help handle the whole process with the company, because I think it will greatly increase your chances. And I'm not just saying that to make money, I'm also saying it because it's true and it's just the reality of the situation. So you're going to need to make a plan to enter New Zealand quarantine free. If your plan is to enter New Zealand and quarantine, well, guess what? There's no quarantine spaces. So you're going to have to meet the criteria to enter New Zealand quarantine free. And that's not going to be that easy to do. What you need to be is fully vaccinated, and you need to stay in a low risk country for 14 days. This will be the criteria at the start of 2022. So if you're not fully vaccinated, go and get fully vaccinated. If you're in a high risk or medium risk country, if you've got a country that has a lot of COVID cases at the moment, you should try and make a plan to get to a low risk country and then stay there for 14 days and then enter New Zealand quarantine free. A low risk country, for example, would be Singapore, because Singapore, most of its population is vaccinated and it has a very low amount of cases. But there's lots of other countries as well. You need to do your research, find a country that's low risk with a low amount of a low amount of COVID cases, and hopefully a large population being fully vaccinated, and then make a plan to go to that country first for 14 days and then fly into New Zealand quarantine free. Do not rely on entering New Zealand and quarantining for 14 days, because there's just no quarantine spaces, and it'd just be too hard to get a quarantine space. So that's my 6 points: professional CV, good LinkedIn profile, be able to email professionally, understand Seek and TradeMe, hire a licensed immigration advisor, and make a plan to get into New Zealand quarantine free, because there's just so few quarantine spaces available. Anyway, if this video was helpful, please like, please share, and please subscribe. As New Zealand expands on its plans to open its borders, I'll be posting more updates, and I'm hoping that people will be able to start coming to New Zealand the start of 2022, because it looks like New Zealand's going to slowly open up. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.